Chapter 570. Bei Yunji's eyebrows twitched. However, before she could say anything else, a familiar voice came from behind her. Yun. The moment Bei Yunji turned around, she saw the man walking towards her with his long legs. At this moment, Bei Yunji felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. She wondered if this man was going to question her about her puppy love the moment he opened his mouth. After all, this man had always treated her like a child. Suddenly, the man's deep and lazy voice sounded slowly. Is this a friend? Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows slightly and glanced at Huashidu in surprise. Not long after, her gaze stopped on the boy who looked uneasy. She responded faintly, not intending to make the situation even more awkward. The moment he saw this man, he felt a sense of danger. This is my brother. However, the boy seemed to have made up his mind and asked tentatively, who is this gentleman? So it's my brother. However, the boy with slow EQ did not notice Huashidu's expression at all. Instead, he bowed respectfully to Huashidu and said seriously, Hello, brother. Bei Yunji did not think too much about it and said casually. When the man heard this, his pale-colored eyes darkened. He looked straight at Bei Yunji and subconsciously licked the tip of his teeth. He took a deep breath and chuckled softly. The man's eyes were dark and seemed to be filled with unfathomable danger. Then he let out a faint snort. Are you still throwing a tantrum with your brother? Bei Yunji was speechless. Looking at this situation, she felt that the atmosphere was strange. What kind of conflict could these two have? Just as the boy was thinking, Huashidu chuckled again. His casual and low voice was blatantly seductive. Is Yun so unhappy because brother found a female companion last time? Huashidu turned around and looked at Bei Yunji as if there were only the two of them in this scene. However, these words also aroused the boy's curiosity. Although Bei Yunji looked a little cold, he did not seem to have seen her quarrel with anyone before. Was this a brother complex? However, she didn't feel this way when she interacted with Qin Yu before. The boy? He looked at Bei Yunji in disbelief. Apart from feeling that this sentence was strange, he also didn't expect Bei Yunji to be so possessive of his brother. Don't be unhappy. For Yun's sake, I won't find a girlfriend in the future. Huashidu gently pinched Bei Yunji's cheek. When he let go, his fingers rubbed against it intimately. This made Bei Yunji unconsciously feel a trace of numbness in her heart. It was as if the residual warmth on her cheeks had a kind of burning ambiguity. What are you talking about? Bei Yunji's eyelids twitched. Did he not know whether his female companion was a woman or not? Now it was for her. Bei Yunji could not help but look at Huashidu, wanting to pinch his face. However, Bei Yunji, who had just regained her senses, fell silent. This man made it sound so nice. She was the one who said that she didn't want to fall in love for 5 to 6 years. How could it be so thick? Yunji, aren't you going to let your brother find a girlfriend? A strange feeling rose in the boy's heart. He suddenly thought of some kind of orthopedic relationship and his scalp turned numb unconsciously. However, when he looked up, he saw the man's handsome and dignified eyes. His figure was tall like jade. Standing beside the bright and beautiful girl, their auras were inexplicably compatible. Chapter 571. Bei Yunji. At this moment, Bei Yunji felt that Huashidu was extremely childish. She would only be happy if he smeared her name. However, in the eyes of the boy, Bei Yunji's silence was a tacit agreement. This was no longer a problem of brother complex. Then, just as the boy mustered up his courage and wanted to save the girl who had a sick brother complex, he suddenly saw Huashidu lift Bei Yunji's chin again. Yun, open your mouth and take a look. The man's fingers caressed the lower edge of her delicate lips gently and ambiguously. Brother, check if you've eaten anything these few days. Bei Yunji knew that Huashidu was talking about her teeth, so she did not feel burdened and opened her mouth gently. However, from this angle, Huashidu could not see her teeth clearly. The corners of his lips curled up, and his gaze swept over the crowd calmly and leisurely. And from this angle, in the eyes of the boy, they looked like a couple kissing. This made the boy's mind explode. He widened his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. However, his gaze landed on the man's dark eyes and the hand that was holding the little girl's chin. He did not hide his possessiveness towards this little girl. The boy reacted and his face was a little pale as he stared blankly at the scene in front of him. Not long after, Bei Yunj and Huashidu walked backstage to prepare for the livestream banquet. She glanced at the lounge with her name on it, pushed the door open and walked in. "Brother, why are you here today?" Bei Yunj glanced at him. If she did not know that Huashidu often worked overtime, she would have thought that he had nothing to do. "To pick you up." Huashidu glanced at the lounge. It was not very good. In fact, from what he knew, it was slightly simple and the space was not big. "I thought that Big Brother was here to spread rumors," said 101 Chinese. Bei Yunj laughed lazily. She glanced at the man standing by the door and knew that this man might be a little obsessed with cleanliness and felt that this place was not very good. Thinking of this, Bei Yunj walked towards Huashidu. "Are you uncomfortable here?" Hearing this, a dark look flashed across Huashidu's eyes when he heard the sound of footsteps. He then glanced at the open door casually. He looked at the little girl in front of him who didn't have any good ideas. Suddenly, the corner of his lips curled up. His lazy voice dragged out, as if he was deliberately teasing people's eardrums. "No, I won't. With Yun Yun around, I feel comfortable." Bei Yunj, why did everything this man said sound so lustful? At the thought of this, Bei Yunj looked up and saw the man standing lazily by the wall. His handsome and noble eyes were a little cynical, and her heart itched. Thus, the thoughts of the past 10 minutes appeared in his mind again. Suddenly, before he could react, the beautiful girl in front of him pressed him against the wall and boldly reached out to ravage the man's excessively handsome face. At the same time, the man who had confessed to Bei Yunj happened to see the girl he liked pushing the man he had just seen into the corner of the room when he opened the door. At this moment, the man's expression changed when he saw this scene through the crack of the door. Were they really in such a relationship? However, just as the man was still trying to deceive himself, he heard the man's deep and magnetic voice in the room. It was ambiguous and hoarse, and it made his ears burn. "Yun, don't touch me." In an instant, the man was completely petrified. Chapter 572. He was stunned for a long time. Then he heard that familiar voice from inside. "Haven't you touched me?" The girl's clear voice sounded naturally, but the amount of information in her words was shocking. The boy's face could not be any stiffer. So, they had been in such a relationship for a long time? Suddenly, he felt that this world was so sinful. Not long after, he gritted his teeth. He was still unwilling to accept this. He made up his mind to look inside and see more clearly. But when he pushed the door open a little more, suddenly, the man, who was leaning lazily against the wall with a seductive gaze, grabbed Bei Yunj's slender and fair wrists. This stunned Bei Yunj. But before she could regain her senses, the man suddenly curled his thin lips. His Adam's apple rolled sexily as he let out a low laugh. Then, the man suddenly held her hand and placed it on his neck. With a spin, Bei Yunj was pressed against the corner of the wall. "Brother!" Before Bei Yunj could say anything, the man suddenly hooked his arm around her waist and bent down. His warm breath sprayed beside her ear. A warm sensation gently pressed against her ear again. Bei Yunj trembled. Her thoughts instantly went blank as if she had been electrocuted. The boy who had just peeked in happened to see this scene. His entire body turned cold from the blow. He watched as the man lowered his head and did something to the girl's neck. "You!" The boy's pupils constricted. Just as he was about to interrupt, Huashidu suddenly closed the door without raising his head. This made the boy's expression change again and again. So, this man had discovered him long ago and deliberately let him see this scene. When the boy regained his senses, he also thought of Huashidu's attitude towards him. He seemed to have been hostile from the beginning. Colorful Chinese until the boy left. Bei Yunj's heartbeat returned to normal, but the strange emotions that rose in her heart did not dissipate. Did Huashidu kiss her just now? Although this action was very sudden, Bei Yunj didn't feel any disgust. Instead, she didn't dislike this man's closeness. However, Bei Yunj suddenly felt a little embarrassed when she saw the man's gaze and the way he couldn't hide his smile. Huoshidu. The man answered naturally, You don't seem to feel guilty at all. Bei Yunj looked at him and said, It was as if he had never done such a thing. Huoshidu tried his best to suppress the corners of his lips and cooperate with the young lady. Bei Yunj looked at the man in front of her and said lazily, I feel quite guilty. Why couldn't she tell? So why did he suddenly do that just now? Bei Yunj's mind raced as she looked at the bastard's face. She originally wanted to say some harsh words, but she changed her mind. Control yourself. When Huoshidu heard this, the corners of his lips unconsciously curled up. He quickly lowered his head. Bei Yunj originally thought that Huoshidu had suddenly realized that there was something wrong with his behavior. However, before she could speak, she suddenly heard the man's low and hoarse chuckle. Bei Yunj, all right, brother, control yourself. Yun will also understand, brother. The man's low and magnetic voice carried a teasing smile. It was extremely sexy. Chapter 573. Seeing the girl almost running away, the man chuckled hoarsely and suppressed the desire that had arisen inadvertently. Just now, he almost could not help but continue. However, Bei Yunj did not notice the dark look in the man's eyes. On the way, suddenly, a voice sounded in surprise. Master Pei? Master Pei, what's wrong? You seem to be blushing. Hua Sun happened to meet Bei Yunj and sized her up in disbelief. Bei Yunj hummed indifferently, still thinking about her own matters. But in the next second, Hua Sun was even more curious and quickened his steps to follow behind Bei Yunj. Master Pei, what's wrong? Seeing that Hua Sun was about to start nagging, Bei Yunj looked at him with a faint smile. What? You're not done, are you? Hua Sun immediately shut up and did not dare to follow her. He only stared fixedly at the person leaving in front of him. However, Qin Youjiao, who happened to see this scene, had a dark glint in her eyes as she walked towards Hua Sun. Did Yunj say something to you just now? Her tone seems to be quite bad when she talks to you. Hasn't she always been like this? Hua Sun glanced at her and did not notice anything strange. Qin Youjiao's eyes darkened and she said with a smile. That's true. She's like this. She doesn't seem to take anyone seriously. At this moment, Qin Youjiao looked up and saw Hua Sun still staring at Bei Yunj's back. She could not help calling out, Hua Sun. Suddenly, after Hua Sun regained his senses, he could not help sighing. How arrogant! You're a man. In an instant, Qin Youjiao's expression darkened. Seeing Hua Sun turn to look at her, she had no choice but to force an ugly smile, but her fists were clenched tightly. This trash even said that he would stand up for her back then. In the end, ever since Bei Yunj snatched his money, Hua Sun had been trying to build a good relationship with Bei Yunj. There were many people at the banquet. The instructor, who had always been cold to them, also smiled happily. This made the others feel that the instructor was really happy to send them off today. The guests who participated in the variety show also felt that they had finally endured this hellish training and could perform well at the banquet. Hence, at the closing banquet, the performances of the guests were more eye-catching than the other. Especially after the director borrowed a very good piano, the audience quieted down and listened to her play seriously. Until Qin Youjiao's performance ended, the comments section was filled with comments. What a fairy, Qin Youjiao. When she plays the piano, her temperament is too good. Yu Jiao is so pretty. That was the best performance of the night. I like it. I have to say, Qin Youjiao's performance was very good from beginning to end. Even the instructor said that Qin Youjiao was very hardworking. Unlike a certain someone, the instructor didn't even care about her anymore. However, seeing so many comments praising Qin Youjiao, some people were not so happy. F***ck, a certain fan is too good at bragging, right? When Bei Yunj was shooting, why was a certain fan as quiet as a chicken? Speaking of which, it's really strange. There's really a problem with Bei Yunj's scenes after that? Best of the night? Brother, you hasn't even started performing and you're already bragging? F***ck, F asterisk CK, F asterisk CK, why are people still arguing? Look at the man in the white shirt in the second row. He's so handsome. Is he really not an artiste? Chapter 574. Hearing this, many people furrowed their eyebrows. Not long after, some netizens who felt that it was ridiculous laughed mockingly. They had just typed a line of words and had yet to send it out. Suddenly, a handsome and noble eyebrows flashed across the screen. A few seconds later, someone in the comments section was about to go crazy. Oh, who is this young man? He's too handsome. Whoa, Sister Chiu, give me a detailed information. I suddenly want to chase after celebrities. Another godlike face? Does the production team have so much funding? Did they spend money to hire him? Whoa, he's really good looking. I thought he was a tyrant in reality. After a long time, no one in the live stream could tell who the man who had flashed past the screen for only a second was. Some of the netizens, who were so anxious and curious, were about to scratch their ears and cheeks. Where did this man come from? In fact, in that second, even Huashidu, who was sitting in the second row, did not even glance over. He only raised his eyebrows slightly. His lazy and carefree attitude was enough to leave a deep impression on others. It inexplicably stirred up one's hormones. However, after that second, no one saw Huashidu for more than half an hour. At this moment, after Qin got off the stage, he quickly noticed Huashidu and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Then he got his exclusive cameraman to stop filming and walked in front of Huashidu. Master Du, why are you here? Qin sat beside Huashidu and asked curiously. To watch your performance. Huashidu said slowly. Hearing this, Qin was silent for a long time before he regained his senses. To watch our performance? Qin felt that it was very suspicious. Then he could not help but look at Bei Yunj, who was in the first row. Looking at the distance between the two of them, he seemed to understand something. Don't tell me you two had a fight? Qin tone was a little gloating. This made Huashidu glance at him carelessly with his pale-colored eyes. After hearing Huashidu admit it, Qin vanity was inexplicably satisfied. Is that so? Actually, you might not know this, but too many things have happened between Ge and me during this period of time. I keep feeling that Ge and I have become much closer. Qin sighed. Huashidu did not intend to expose him either. He only looked at Bei Yunj's back without hiding it. About 5 minutes later, Qin suddenly placed his hand on Huashidu's shoulder. This action made Huashidu's eyes darken unconsciously and he glanced at Qin leisurely. However, at the thought of Qin identity, she had to get along with him in the future, so she didn't say much to him. Brothers, maybe not real brothers. That's how it is. How about this? I'll give you some personal space later, so you can perform well. Qin tone was filled with pride. Huashidu's eyes landed on Qin. He chuckled and replied lazily, sure. Good luck. Qin patted Huashidu's shoulder encouragingly. He had no idea how Huashidu had been alone with his Ge an hour ago. Master Pei? Master Pei, are you ready? Huasun suddenly asked eagerly. Ready for what? Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow and glanced at him. We have a live event. Have you forgotten? Chapter 575. Hearing this, Bei Yunj looked away and continued to fight with Chu Zhixing and the rest. I didn't sign up. Huasun was speechless. Look at the program list. Hearing this, Bei Yunj finally noticed that everyone else had a program list in their hands. After regaining her senses, Bei Yunj realized that she might be in the lounge. Bei Yunj was speechless. At this moment, seeing that Bei Yunj was silent, the corners of Huasun's mouth twitched and he handed the program list to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj glanced at it and saw the last column. Question and answer segment. Hosts, Bei Yunj, Huasun. Bei Yunj was speechless. Seeing Bei Yunj and Huasun go on stage, Yunhua happened to walk back and sat beside Qin Yojiao. Where did you go just now? Qin Yojiao asked. Yunhua laughed out loud. Her eyes swept past Bei Yunj, who was in front of her, and she said meaningfully, isn't it about to end? Since you're here, You should do something else. With that said, a dark look flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes. She could guess what Yunhua had gone to do just now. The corners of her lips curled up. Sit down. Let's continue watching the show. The two of them waited for the show to start. Hua Sun stood in front and received the questions written on the notes by the audience. On Bei Yunji's side, because of the inexplicable pressure, no one dared to give it to her. Why isn't anyone giving it to me? Bei Yunji asked unconsciously. Hua Sun was speechless. Who would dare to give it to you when you have an "don't touch me" expression? The people below the stage could not hear what Bei Yunji and Hua Sun were talking about, but seeing the two of them looking at each other in silence, they felt inexplicably happy. Haha, why do I like Bei Yunji and Hua Sun so much? Don't say, Hua Sun is really good at variety shows. Although Master Pei has the aura of a big boss, when you're on camera with Hua Sun, it feels like you're watching a comedy. Wuj and Sun are a couple. However, although the comments kept flooding the comments, no one thought that someone would personally break their dream of a couple. On the stage, Pei Huashuan gave Bei Yunji 15 notes and kept 15 for herself. The two of them read the contents of the notes one after another. When the questions were asked, the guests would be invited to the stage to interact with each other. If someone asked him a question, he would answer it himself. However, when Hua Sun saw the next few questions in his hand, he unconsciously frowned and a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. This time, the audience members had all signed a contract, forbidding anyone from being on the stage. But he had at least 3 pieces of paper in his hand, all of which were related to Bei Yunji. Their questions were all extremely harsh. It was obvious that they were targeting Bei Yunji. Hua Sun took a deep breath and put the notes behind him. He asked a few other questions first. When the other guests went on stage to speak, he told Bei Yunji about it. The purpose of these notes was obviously to embarrass Bei Yunji in public. Pei Yunji hid the coldness in her eyes as the corners of her lips curled up into a faint smile. She played with the remaining note in her hand. Yunhua, who was below the stage, also noticed that Bei Yunji and Hua Sun must be discussing how to solve this problem. She couldn't help but look smug. But who knew? After the guests went on stage and finished speaking, everyone realized that there was a sudden change in the way they interacted. Hua Sun was going to randomly pick someone to go on stage and ask questions. When the audience heard this, they started to talk. Wasn't this depriving them of their rights? But then, just as someone was about to stand up and speak, the people in the second row suddenly stood up. P.S. Good night, continue tomorrow morning. Good girls, remember to vote. Chapter 576. This stunned Hua Sun for a moment. When he saw the man's appearance clearly, he was even more stunned. Was this man the boyfriend of some guest? Hua Sun had seen all kinds of people and could naturally tell that the man in front of him was not simple. He couldn't be someone's fan, right? At this thought, Hua Sun still maintained his composure. After letting the man come up, he probed, "Are you the fan?" Hoshidu glanced at Hua Sun carelessly. His thin eyes were filled with elegance as he replied without looking away. Hearing this, Hua Sun was shocked. A man of this level was King chasing idols. Who was so important? Hua Sun could not help but size up Hoshidu. The handmade shirt on this person seemed to cost him a month's living expenses. Who are you chasing? Hua Sun blurted out instinctively. On the other hand, the female fans present could not control their girlish hearts and excited screams. Why was Hua Sun so troublesome? They had just fallen in love with a little brother and he wanted their house to collapse so quickly. It had to be said. The moment Hoshidu stood on the stage, his handsome eyes were filled with indifference and laziness. The sleeves of his white shirt were rolled up loosely under his elbows and his suit pants were too straight, making him look even more refined and dignified. Hoshidu's eyes swept past him and finally landed on Bei Yunji beside him. The corners of his lips curled up and his low voice sounded. "I'm chasing after the lady beside you." With that said, the fans present were about to explode as screams rose and fell. What kind of sweet public confession was this? Wasn't this too much? A large-scale dog slaughtering scene. Bei Yunj was speechless. Below the stage, Qin Yu had yet to realize that something was wrong. He only felt that fans nowadays loved to imagine things. How was it possible for Ge and Master Du? It was impossible in their next life, let alone their next life. Qin Yu chuckled and continued watching the show with his arms crossed. However, on the other side, Yun Nua's expression changed when she saw that the person on stage was actually Huashidu. Why would Master Du come to this place? Could it be? Was it really for Bei Yunj? Last time, at the Qin family's old residence, Yun Nua could tell that Huashidu treated Bei Yunj differently. However, she had always thought that it was just a momentary feeling of novelty. After all, Bei Yunj did have the looks to back her up. Why would Master Du come all the way here? Moreover, he didn't mind coming up on stage and being discussed by others. Hua Sun felt that the situation was getting out of hand. The bullet screen was also filled with Wei is dead. Suddenly, Huashidu chuckled softly. His lazy voice was extremely seductive. Miss Pei, will you give me a chance to woo her? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. And this time, the voices of the female fans were deafening and frightening. The comments were even more intense. F*CK, 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 why is this man so good at what I like? Is this little brother flirting with Master Pei? My Master Pei didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. Master Pei has tacitly agreed that they can get married now. Please get married on the spot, okay? The scene was very noisy. Bei Yunj's lips twitched unconsciously. She did not know what this man was trying to do. However, when Hua Sun sensed the strange atmosphere, he immediately smiled. Chapter 577. Come. Then let's continue reading the questions on the note. Hua Sun had just blurted out when he suddenly realized that he had messed up the matter. He had called someone up just now to ask them questions. But now, he was letting others read the note. Wasn't he making things worse? No, Hua Sun was about to change his words when Huashidu took the note. He looked down carelessly and opened the note with his slender and well-defined hands. However, after seeing the contents, there was a deep coldness in his eyes, but the audience below the stage did not notice it. Huashidu slowly folded the note again. His thin eyelids were half lifted and his gaze landed on Bei Yunj. Suddenly, the man's thin red lips curled up. I have a question for our Miss Pei. Before anyone could react, everyone saw the man staring straight at the bright and beautiful girl in front of him and chuckling softly. His magnetic voice was light and flirtatious. What type of boy do you like? Do you like brother? As soon as he finished speaking, almost all the girls who were chasing after celebrities could not help but scream excitedly. They could not control their young hearts that were about to jump out. F*CK, brother is so flirtatious. This is the first time I've seen such a good man. Sob, is he a domineering CEO who walked out of the movie? Is there a fanfic? I want to chase after him. Our Master Pei is dumbfounded. She's too cute standing there looking at little brother. Bei Yunj suppressed the inexplicable beating of her heart and glanced at the man in front of her, who still had a natural expression. She suddenly smiled. Brother, I don't fall in love early. With that said, however, the sense of a couple did not decrease. Instead, it increased. Brother, Master Pei means to get married after high school. The president of Qin Yu's fan club was already shouting at the top of his lungs. Everyone on the scene heard it loud and clear. Bei Yunj was speechless. Qin Yu was even more confused and his handsome face did not look too good. Which eye of hers could tell that her girl liked Master Du? Huashidu chuckled and did not speak. He only gestured to her with his eyes. It was as if he was saying, so you want to get married? Bei Yunj, wasn't this dog man getting more and more overboard? At this moment, below the stage, Qin Yu finally felt a sense of danger. He felt that something was wrong and immediately went to find the director. Hurry up and let Hua Sun continue. My sister is only in her second year of high school. What are you guys doing? It was the director's first time seeing Qin Yu's expression darken. He immediately used the walkie-talkie to speak to Hua Sun. So, Hua Sun changed the topic. However, the interaction between Bei Yunj and the mysterious man was still unstoppable and became a hot topic. However, it only took about 20 minutes to completely suppress it. Usually, even if the news was suppressed, there would still be big accounts that were not afraid of death. But now, as long as it was related to Bei Yunj, it was as if the higher-ups had issued some kind of order and deleted it very quickly. The trending searches disappeared. Qin Yu also felt slightly uneasy, afraid that Huashidu would really fall in love with his ge. Huashidu was outstanding and even incomparable to his peers. But how old was his ge? Chapter 578. After leaving the stage. Huashidu watched as Bei Yunj left, the smile on his lips disappearing. His originally indifferent and lazy eyes were now filled with an inhuman coldness. Master Du! Tsing Su, who had rushed over, called out carefully. Go and investigate. If you can't, I'll put the blame on you. Huashidu placed the note on the table beside him, his voice cold. The moment he finished speaking, he saw Qin Yu walking over. Master Du, I have something to tell you. Qin Yu's expression was dark. Huashidu glanced at him slowly and said to Tsing Su, Go and investigate first. After Tsing Su left, Qin Yu saw that there was only him and Huashidu present. He gritted his teeth and asked, Have you taken a fancy to my sister? Instead, Huashidu's lips curved. There was no panic on his face and his tone was still light. Why do you ask? I keep feeling that there's something wrong with your question just now. Qin Yu's ink-like handsome eyes were filled with seriousness. However, after Huashidu glanced at him, he only laughed casually. He asked, Are you wooing your sister? She's still a high school student. Can I do it? The man's well-defined hand took out a cigarette from the cigarette box carelessly. The way he bit the cigarette was exceptionally lustful. The white smoke curled up and the half-hidden emotions in the man's eyes could not be seen. Hearing this, Qin Yu suddenly realized something. Master Du was not such a person. However, Qin Yu was still cautious. Really? Huashidu's thin lips curled up and he answered without any psychological pressure. So, Qin Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief. He knew it. Why would Master Du do such a thing? After that, Bei Yunj wanted to find a hotel nearby, but she suddenly received a call from Tish. After chatting for a while, Bei Yunj decided to meet Tish at the hotel address he had booked. In the hotel lobby, Bei Yunj had just entered when she sat on the sofa in the waiting area. She glanced at her watch and calculated the time. However, at this time, a waiter hurried over and said with a smile, Miss, we won't be entertaining guests after 10 o'clock today. If you want to stay here, you have to book a room first. Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched, but she felt that this hotel was not bad, so she nodded and followed the waiter to the front desk to register. When Bei Yunj took off her hat and mask and revealed her face, the waiters who met Bei Yunj's eyes were all stunned. Wasn't this girl too good-looking? After Bei Yunj checked all the information, she narrowed her eyes and wrote the registration form with a pen in her slender, fair hand. Her lazy eyes were bright and lazy. Is that enough? Only then did the waiter react. He immediately nodded vigorously. Thank you. Bei Yunj took the room card and walked to the lounge. Another waiter said softly, She's probably here to try her luck. This doesn't feel like it. She booked a presidential suite and swiped her card without even blinking. The waiter who had just received Bei Yunj spoke up for Bei Yunj. After all, although many young models and internet celebrities had come to stay with them today, most of them asked about the price of the top-floor suite in their hotel and did not say anything else. Those two rich second-generation heirs naturally stayed on the highest floor. If others wanted to get close to such people, they naturally wanted to get as close as possible. Chapter 579. However, this made sense. Who didn't want to marry into a wealthy family? Moreover, those two rich second-generation heirs weren't ordinary second-generation heirs, but the top second-generation heirs of our nation. That girl looked like that and had indeed grasped a man's weakness. Thinking of this, the waiter felt jealous, but he didn't say anything that didn't suit his status. However, at this moment, other than the waiter, there were also people in the corridor on the second floor looking at Bei Yunj downstairs. They had the same thoughts as the waiter. Miss Yen, that woman is probably after young Master Tich. A beautiful woman beside her said with a mean look in her eyes. At Tich's age, there are indeed a lot of girls throwing themselves at him. The person called Miss Yen was wearing a cheongsam and had a graceful figure. However, in the next moment, her voice was filled with natural arrogance as she slowly walked downstairs. But how can such a woman be worthy of Tich? The beautiful woman glanced at her and hid the sarcasm in her eyes. Didn't Yen Herwei climb into Delaney's bed like this back then? She slept with a man who was older than her at the age of 21 and always treated herself as the main wife. But it was good. With this woman, she would have less trouble. Lin Chenyi followed Yen Herwei's footsteps and watched as Yen Herwei stopped in front of Bei Yunj and sized up Bei Yunj arrogantly. "What's your name?" When Bei Yunj heard this, her eyebrows moved without batting an eyelid. She glanced at the woman in front of her who was dressed like a nouveau riche. "What's the matter?" Bei Yunj's voice was lazy and indifferent, and her gaze didn't linger on her. When Yen Herwei saw that Bei Yunj's table had a presidential suite card and that the clothes she was wearing looked like a high-end foreign brand, she couldn't help but feel an indescribable jealousy. Everything she had now was given to her by the man she had spent so much effort to hook up with. But the girl in front of her was obviously not. Yen Herwei narrowed her eyes and laughed again. She sat opposite Bei Yunj and crossed her legs, revealing the snow-white skin on her thighs. "Which family are you from?" Now, Yen Herwei treated Bei Yunj as a young lady with a decent family background. However, he would still have to be like her, hooking up with the super rich. At the same time, Bei Yunj could not help but frown when she saw the message that Tich had sent her, saying that he would definitely arrive within 10 minutes. So why was he looking for her in the middle of the night? Bei Yunj suppressed her impatience and sent another message to Tich. However, when this scene landed in Yen Herwei's eyes, it was undisguised contempt. Yen Herwei's expression changed and she sneered, "Are you pretending to be so virtuous? Then who are you waiting for in the middle of the night?" As soon as he finished speaking, Bei Yunj's eyes gradually turned cold, but her moist red lips curled up slightly. She looked at her with a faint smile, looking cold and ruthless. "Why are you talking so much? Do you think your days are too long?" Yen Herwei accidentally met Bei Yunj's eyes and felt her scalp go numb. But when she came back to her senses, she felt that she had lost face. She stood up in exasperation. "Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? Waiting for someone?" Chapter 580. At this moment, Tich, who was speeding over on his motorcycle, suddenly sneezed. Delaney, who was behind him, immediately covered his mouth and nose, as if a virus had passed through him. "Can't you tell me this in advance?" Tich's eyelids twitched. "You were the one who heard about my teacher and suddenly shamelessly wanted to see her." "I said you sneezed. What if I catch a cold?" Delaney said self-righteously. Tich was speechless. Most fathers would be afraid that their children would catch a cold when they saw them sneeze, right? All of a sudden, Tich wanted to turn around and send this person back. But thinking that Bei Yunj was still waiting for him, he endured it. A few minutes later, the moment Tich brought Delaney in, he saw a beauty who was crying so hard that she bumped into his arms. Seeing this, Tich frowned and dodged to the side. At this moment, Yen Herwei realized that she had almost thrown herself at the wrong person. Her face was green and red. Then she ran in front of Delaney and hugged his waist intimately. It had to be said that although Delaney was in his 40s or 50s, he only looked like he was in his early 30s. His figure was still perfect and capable. Even in her 40s or 50s, Yen Herwei did not lose out much. "Darling, a woman hit me just now because I said a few more words." Delaney had always been protective of the fairer sex. Seeing that Yen Herwei's face was indeed red, he could not help but touch her face. He comforted her. "You're not disfigured. Don't worry. Yen Herui's face froze, then she said coquettishly, "You said you loved me last time, but now you don't feel sorry for me at all." Hearing this, Delaney realized that Yen Herui was beating around the bush to get him to help her vent her anger. Delaney agreed. "Bring me to take a look at the situation first." If that woman really went overboard, he would naturally protect Yen Herui. After all, Yen Herui was his woman, although she was just his new girlfriend. However, Tich was disdainful when he saw this scene. Yen Herui was the one who thought the most. She thought that Delaney would marry her and treat her as a junior. What a joke! Who didn't know that Delaney's girlfriend wouldn't last more than 3 months? At the thought of this, Tich felt that this woman had embarrassed his teacher. They grew up in the same place, but he couldn't even compare to a strand of his teacher's hair. Thinking of this, Tich couldn't be bothered to deal with the two of them. He simply went to look for Bei Yunj. Tich's eyes lit up when he saw the figure in the living room. He immediately walked over to Bei Yunj and greeted her cautiously. Bei Yunj glanced at him casually. He didn't seem to be in high spirits either. "Teacher, you don't seem to be in a good mood today." Tich probed carefully. Could it be that he had been sitting here for too long and was angry with her? At this moment, Lin Qianyi's eyes lit up when she saw Yen Herui's message. She planned to look for Tich. She didn't expect Tich to be sitting next to Bei Yunj. They looked very close. Lin Qianyi's expression immediately changed. Did this woman really hook up with Tich? After a long time, Lin Qianyi finally snapped out of her daze. She gritted her teeth and sent Yen Herui a text. When Yen Herui saw this text message, she was also furious. How could a woman be so scheming? Tich had only been in there for a short while, and she had already hooked up with him. Yen Herui sneered. She didn't even see if she was worthy. Chapter 581. What's wrong, my dear? Delaney was still a little patient with his female companion. My dear, that woman seems to have designs on Tich. Yen Herui bit her lip and said coquettishly. Delaney paused when he heard that. He did not expect Tich to have such a market these days. Then, before Delaney could finish, Yen Herui pulled him back and refused to let him go. You said you would help me deal with her. When did he say such a thing? However, Delaney still maintained the silence of a big shot. After thinking for a while, he nodded reservedly and brought Yen Herui in. Seeing this, Yen Herui smiled through her tears. On the other side, Bei Yunj sat downstairs drinking water. Tich, who was beside her, threw her a math problem from time to time, trying to divert Bei Yunj's attention and change her mood. However, Bei Yunj could not help but take another look at Tich. When Tich heard Bei Yunj suddenly call his name, he thought that his teacher had a whole new level of respect for him because he solved the problem too quickly. What's wrong? Tich suppressed his pounding heart. Unexpectedly, Bei Yunj only looked at him with a complicated expression. You're so bad at math. There will be limitations when you learn computer science in the future. Tich was speechless. He was thinking too much. The thought of his teacher being nominated for both Farisk and Busaka at such a young age, and even solving 1,000 questions made him doubt his life. How could someone be so smart? Tich didn't know that when he shone in school, his classmates also thought the same way. However, when Tich thought that such a powerful person was his teacher, he started to get excited again. He asked shyly, Teacher, what do you think of me? Bei Yunj continued to dig into the cake with her fork without looking up. Just, when do you think I can win a Busaka prize? Tich immediately said. Bei Yunj stopped eating the cake and was silent for a long time. Tich, I'm glad that you know how to improve yourself. Before Tich could rejoice, he heard Bei Yunj say, but don't make things difficult for me. Tich, study hard. You'll get everything you want. Bei Yunj was probably afraid that Tich would be frustrated, so she added, I'll try my best to get you on the right track as soon as possible. Bei Yunj thought that Tich was hinting for her to teach faster. But with Tich and Jasmine's level, she would have to lay down the foundation for them for at least a few years. Tich did not expect that in Bei Yunj's eyes, he had not even entered the right path of his profession. After that, just as Tich was unable to recover from the blow, he suddenly heard a harsh and familiar voice. Honey, look, it's this woman. How dare she hit me? Tich frowned. He looked up and saw Yen Herui's pretentious look. He narrowed his eyes and sneered. Miss Yen, who are you complaining about? Honey, look, Tich has only interacted with this woman for a while, and he's already helping her. Yen Herui bit her lip, but her eyes were filled with viciousness. She had to make this woman pay the price. However, Yen Herui did not notice that Delaney's gaze was also on the person sitting on the sofa. He looked at this familiar face and suppressed his inexplicable excitement. He was also a little afraid of disturbing Bei Yunj. Delaney probed carefully. But, Teacher Pei? Love House? Bei Yunj only looked up when she heard the familiar voice. When she saw Delaney, she could not help but frown. Why you here? Delaney's excited smile froze. What should he say? Should he say that he forced Tich to help him ask her out because she had been ignoring him? I think the scenery here is not bad. As soon as Delaney finished speaking, the woman beside him still could not see the situation clearly. Yen Herui widened her eyes and said unhappily, Honey, didn't you say you would help me teach her a lesson? Why are you— Shut up. Delaney's eyelids twitched in fright. Teach her a lesson? Did he not want to work in the company anymore? Was that why he wanted to teach the god of fortune that he had painstakingly relied on his son to get close to? Delaney, Yen Herui could not believe that Delaney would treat her like this. Then, Delaney pulled Yen Herui's hand away from his and walked towards Bei Yunj to pour some tea for Bei Yunj. Teacher Pei, I really didn't expect to have the chance to see you. Bei Yunj also looked at him. I didn't expect this either. Delaney's heart ached. This was the first time he met someone who could not even be bothered to lie to him. So, Bei Yunj really did not plan to see him? Is this your girlfriend? At this moment, Bei Yunj looked up and suddenly asked casually. Delaney froze. This? He really did not expect Yen Herui to be so bold as to provoke Bei Yunj. I did hit her. Bei Yunj said unhurriedly. Tich, who was beside him, looked down and did not intend to interfere at all. Anyway, when it came to his teacher, his father was more cowardly than anyone else. It had to be said that Tich knew Delaney very well. Honey, look, she really attacked me. Yen Herui still refused to give up. She did not have any foresight at all. Delaney's expression did not look too good either. He did not expect a woman to be so stupid. Miss Yen, you can leave now. He would definitely side with Bei Yunj. However, he also knew Bei Yunj's personality very well. If she had not provoked him, Bei Yunj would not have looked at Yen Herui. Delaney, are you breaking up with me? Yen Herui's eyes immediately turned red. Lin Qianni, who had walked down from upstairs, originally wanted to see Yen Herui deal with Bei Yunj, but she did not expect to hear that Yen Herui was going to be broken up in public. Lin Qianni froze and instinctively looked at the few people not far away. I don't need a female companion who sows discord. Delaney said coldly. He did not even admit that he had a girlfriend. Yen Herui's face turned pale and her mind was in a mess. She did not expect Delaney to break up with her because of this. At this moment, Yen Herui then realized that Delaney had been calling this person teacher. A person who Delaney called teacher, she originally thought that it might be someone who had taught Tich before. But on second thought, Tich was a few years older than this girl. If this was Tich's teacher, it would be too unbelievable. Moreover, Tich was a student of Neely University. Chapter 582. When Bei Yunj heard this, she immediately understood why Tich had asked her out at this time. She glanced at Tich and did not say anything. She did not mind satisfying her students' little thoughts. Not long after, Tich heard the person beside him say lazily, "Next time, you can be more direct with me." She might not reject him. It was just that she was too lazy to socialize and maintain interpersonal relationships. Tich was stunned when he heard this. Then, complicated and touched emotions rose in his heart and his face heated up. Teacher, I'm sorry, he thought that with Bei Yunj's personality, she would definitely be angry or ask him to change his mentor. He did not expect Bei Yunj to say this. I'll get you more cake. Tich saw that Bei Yunj was about to finish the cake in her hands, So he stood up diligently and ran to the restaurant at the back. At this moment, only Delaney and the others were left. Delaney looked up and met Bei Yunji's eyes. Miss Pei, Delaney, I was wrong. I didn't know she knew you. Yen Hurue interrupted Delaney and finally reacted. She realized that this person was not to be trifled with. However, Delaney, who was afraid of offending Bei Yunji, could not reconcile with this woman. Delaney took out a check and gave it to Yen Hurue. Sorry, we're not suitable for each other. Yen Hurue's face was pale. She could not help but look at Bei Yunji, feeling indignant. Was Delaney going to break up with her just because she was a teacher? However, she could clearly tell that Delaney's attitude towards her was very careful. Even Titch's attitude towards this girl did not seem like he had feelings for his sweetheart. Instead, there was an inexplicable respect. When Delaney and Bei Yunji went to the conference room on the second floor to discuss matters, Yen Hurue was still unwilling to leave. How could she give up on the sugar daddy that she had painstakingly hooked up with? However, because Delaney's bodyguard stopped her, she could not get close. She could only wait downstairs with a breakdown. How could this be? When Yen Hurue thought of what Bei Yunji had said to her just now, her face turned even paler. This girl was really waiting for someone. She was waiting for Titch and the others. However, she thought that this girl was trying to cling to the rich and powerful, so she kept ridiculing her to find a sense of accomplishment. Now it's all good. In the end, she had offended someone she shouldn't have offended, and all her efforts were in vain. Second floor. Miss Pei, she has offended you. In the future, I won't use her for anything related to the company. Don't worry. Yen Hurue was a C-list artiste. Recently, because of Delaney, she had received a lot of resources and became a familiar face on the screen. But now, Delaney did not have the courage to continue supporting Yen Hurue. There was a reason why Delaney was popular with women in the circle. He doted on women and was generous. Even if they broke up, he would still miss their old relationship. But this time, it was clearly different. Mr. Delaney, you won't gain anything by doing this. Bei Yunji said leisurely without hiding anything. Since Delaney had such plans, she would not plead for Yen Hurue. Whatever he wanted to do had nothing to do with her. She would not put in effort on unimportant people. She had gotten back what she wanted. Of course, I understand. Delaney felt his teeth ache, but fortunately he already knew that this person was difficult to please. Are you looking for me because of the project? I've already handed it to Marcus. Bei Yunji said unhurriedly. It's our first time meeting, so I should congratulate you first. Congratulations to Miss Pei for being nominated for 2 awards this year. Delaney smiled with a rosy face, looking very happy. Back then, it was his discerning eyes that had discovered Bei Yunji's potential. As a matter of fact, in everyone's eyes, the first project was taken by him. However, when he thought of the girl's age, his scalp turned numb. She was not even 20 years old. In the future, if Bei Yunji grew up, Country A's computing field would definitely be an unprecedented scene. At the thought of this, Delaney felt that Jones, who had been fired after a month, should be dragged out and shot. It would be more worth the loss of Country R. There's no need to say anything nice. What's the matter? Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows and asked. Actually, Delaney looked at Bei Yunji and blurted out, I want to ask about Titch. Bei Yunji paused and looked at Delaney. She thought that Delaney was here for her new project. After all, she could tell that Delaney was an absolutely mature businessman. I know that you want to stay in Yuncheng to develop. To you, Titch is just an intern at Country R's Computing Institute. But as Titch's father, I want to ask you if there's still a chance for you to continue taking care of Titch? It's fine even if Titch stays in Yuncheng. Delaney had already discussed this matter with Marcus. If Titch had the ability to follow Bei Yunji, his future would definitely be limitless. Just because of this? There was no emotion on Bei Yunji's face as she asked casually. Delaney was a little nervous. After all, his ex-girlfriend had just offended Bei Yunji. If they're willing to learn, there's nothing I can't do. Hearing Bei Yunji's words, Delaney was very touched. Then he heard her say, although their aptitude is a little lacking, hard work can make up for it. Delaney said, You're right. He had heard about it before. Bei Yunj was very popular in Country R's Computing Institute, and all the interns chose to let Bei Yunj teach a class. In the end, after that, no one dared to let Bei Yunj teach a class. Only Tich and Jasmine, who had some kind of self-torture mentality, became braver the more they were defeated. So you mean you agree? Delaney asked carefully again. Bei Yunj thought for a moment. Let's wait for them to graduate before coming to Yuncheng. I'll talk to Marcus and let the two of them stay in their institute for a while. Okay, I'll listen to you. Delaney nodded repeatedly. Bei Yunj looked at him for a while and laughed. I thought you wanted to talk to me about the new project. I did. Delaney was a little helpless. But ever since you left Country R's Computing Institute, Tich has been quite nervous. He was afraid that you would leave, so he didn't bring him along. No wonder the reports have been submitted so quickly recently. Bei Yunj nodded. Delaney was speechless. Alright, I'm going upstairs to rest. You can talk to the manager of the Computing Institute about the new project. With that, Bei Yunj went upstairs. At this moment, Delaney turned around and saw his son's touched face. The goosebumps rose all over Delaney's body. Why is this troublesome thing here? P.S. There's more. Chapter 583. Upstairs. Bei Yunj had just finished showering when she saw the messages the two of them had sent her. After replying, she called Huashidu again before preparing to rest. At this moment, downstairs, the man had just arrived at the lobby and attracted the attention of the two ladies at the front desk. She originally thought that Tich and Jasmine, who had come in the past 2 days, were enough to shock people with their looks. In the end, this man in front of her completely matched their standards of beauty. Suite K1209's room card. Xingsu walked forward and said familiarly. Hearing this, the lady at the front desk froze. A room card that started with K12. This was reserved for people in President Yu's circle. She had always heard that K1201 was reserved for President Yu and K1209 was reserved for that person from the Hua family. At this thought, the lady at the front desk did not dare to breathe too loudly. After verifying his identity, she immediately brought him to the 12th floor. In the elevator, Xingsu hurriedly tore off Bei Yunj's dining habits from his small notebook and handed it to the lady at the front desk as he said with a smile. The guest from 1205, please prepare for tomorrow morning's meal. The lady at the front desk nodded immediately, but her heart was surging. Wasn't the guest from 1205 the young lady from just now? It's been hard on you. Our young lady doesn't stay outside much. I'm afraid she won't be used to it. Xingsu smiled. It's not hard at all. From Xingsu's address and attitude towards that young lady, the lady at the front desk could tell that that young lady did not have a shameful identity. She was simply a pampered young lady from a wealthy family. Until they entered the study of the suite. Xingsu finally spoke. Master Du, we found out about Miss Pei. The person who did this is Miss Yun Nua. The Yun family had nothing to do with the Hua family, but they had always been on good terms with the Qin family. Miss Qin Yojiao was probably the reason why they could do this. Seeing that Huashidu did not speak, Xingsu asked carefully, then should we arrange something? Xingsu was a little uncertain. After all, Huashidu and Yun Nua knew each other because of Qin Yu. However, Bei Yunja's position in Huashidu's heart was even more obvious. So, Huashidu lit a cigarette and leaned against the chair lazily. His handsome eyes were cold and abstinent. His voice was low and indifferent, but it was unreasonable. If the Yun family can't teach their daughter how to behave, then let someone teach the Yun family how to behave. Xingsu's body stiffened when he heard this. Who would have thought that Master Du would directly make a move on the Yun family because of this matter? He didn't care about their previous nodding acquaintance. Then about Miss Yun Nua. Xingsu asked carefully. In the future, I don't want her to have any chance to meet my child again. The man's tone was casual. However, Xingsu understood Huashidu's intentions. He wanted Promise Yun to leave the industry. Xingsu nodded and smiled. Yes, I know what to do. Since they dared to touch their young miss, they should be taught a lesson. At noon the next day, All the major media outlets fought to report about how the female star Yun Nuo relied on her family background, faked her academic qualifications, and bullied others in high school. When Promise Yun saw the news, he panicked and immediately realized who was behind it. Nuo, quickly contact your father. The company's public relations can't suppress the popularity at all, and those media outlets refuse to delete it. Under the urging of her manager, she hurriedly made a call and cried, "Dad, save me, Yun Nuo, something happened at the company. Your brother was taken away by the police." The middle-aged man's voice was hoarse. Chapter 584. Yun Nuo felt as if all the blood in her body had turned cold. "What's wrong, Dad? What on earth happened?" Yun Nuo forced herself to ask rationally. "We don't know either. The Yun family was suddenly investigated by the higher-ups. Also, your brother has been detained because of what happened at the company." Yun Nuo's father took a deep breath. "I'm still thinking of a way to get your brother out. Don't cause trouble." With that said, Yun Nuo's father hung up. Yun Nuo did not dare to imagine that that person would be so ruthless for Bei Yunji's sake. He would not even let the Yun family off. Thinking of this, Yun Nuo gritted her teeth and called Tsing Su. Fortunately, Tsing Su did not block her number. However, from Tsing Su's voice, it was obvious that he knew that she would come looking for him. "Miss Yun, what's the matter?" Tsing Su asked with a smile. "Was Master Du behind what happened to my family?" Yun Nuo's voice was trembling. Tsing Su did not answer. Instead, he smiled and said, "Were you behind Miss Pei's matter?" As soon as he finished speaking, Yun Nuo's scalp went numb. It was really for Bei Yunj. "You did this just for Bei Yunj. Was it Bei Yunj who told Master Du that I was the one who did it?" Yun Nuo's voice was a little crazy and her eyes were red. How could she not compare to that girl who came back from the slums? "Miss Pei, Master Du will investigate too. Everyone who has designs on Miss Pei will not be able to escape." Tsing Su smiled. After all, Miss Pei is the person in Master Du's heart. As soon as she returned home, Bei Yunj was informed by Auntie Miao that something seemed to have happened to Huashidu and he had to go abroad for a few days. Although Huashidu would text Bei Yunj every day. For some reason, Bei Yunj had a vague feeling that something had happened. A few days later, in the evening, the girls' bar, Bei Yunj lowered the brim of her hat and scanned the people around her. She found a boy in a black t-shirt not far away. "Lu Unc." Bei Yunj's tone was not very friendly. "You're here, Master Pei. How are your teeth now?" Lu Unc stood up and asked with a smile. "Bei Yunj, let's go to the private room." Chu Zhixing was there too. It was obvious that this was to make up for the previous birthday party. "Let's go before 9:30. Bei Yunj suppressed his twitching eyebrows and glanced at the two of them leisurely. 9:30? Isn't it too early?" Lu Unc frowned. "There's a curfew at home." Bei Yunj laughed lazily. Subsequently, just as everyone was about to leave, they suddenly heard a shout not far away. This attracted their attention. Everyone looked over and saw a table of people making things difficult for the two waiters. "Is it so difficult for you to have a few drinks? I didn't ask you to sleep with me." The man was wearing a suit, but his mouth was saying extremely obscene words. When Lu Unc and the other boys heard this, they unconsciously frowned. Although this kind of thing was extremely common in such a place where fish and dragons mix together. "Sorry, my friend can't drink." Another slightly cold female voice sounded, but it attracted Bei Yunj's attention. She turned around and found that one of the girls who was protecting the waitress whose chest was drenched was Song Yao. Bei Yunj frowned. Then, before Lu Unc and the rest could react, they saw Bei Yunj walking over. On the sofa. Chapter 585. "After you drink this wine, I'll let your friend go." That man stared at Song Yao unabashedly, his eyes full of lust. This scene was noticed by many people. However, when the people who originally wanted to help the two waiters saw a handsome man in a black silk shirt with curly hair sitting opposite them, they gave up on this idea. It was Fu Yanbai, the young master of the Fu Corporation. "Don't embarrass me, Miss Song. Could it be that you and your friend don't want to work here anymore? The man smiled maliciously. Even though Song Yao's work pass was a fake name, he still called her Miss Song. It was obvious that they were old acquaintances. Song Yao pursed her lips and felt Fu Yanbai's gaze on her. The corners of her lips twitched slightly. Then she reached for the wine on the table. But in the next second, her other slender hand picked up the wine glass even faster. Her clear and lazy voice sounded lazily. "I'm sorry she can't drink. I'll drink this wine for Yao Yao." With that said, Bei Yunj took the wine on the table and drank it in one gulp. Song Yao was stunned by this scene. "Yunj, why are you here?" Bei Yunj glanced at her. It was obvious that she did not want to talk to her right now. At this moment, the man stood up suddenly and his expression changed. "Who are you? Do you know?" Just as Bei Yunj turned around and saw Bei Yunj's face clearly, the man was dazed. He thought that the elder young miss of the Song family was unforgettable enough. However, this person in front of him could be said to be stunning. Even Yu Ling, whom Fu Yanbai was deeply in love with back then, could not compare to her. "So you're Miss Song's friend." The man immediately revealed an even more malicious smile and poured a glass of wine for Bei Yunj with a smile. "Since we're friends, of course we have to drink more." Hearing this, behind them, Lu Yuanxi and Chu Zhixing frowned and their eyes turned cold. "Yunj, don't worry," Song Yao bit her lip. She knew that Fu Yanbai was deliberately making things difficult for her and did not want Bei Yunj to get involved. Suddenly, Bei Yunj held her hand and chuckled. "Why don't you drink more?" Before the man could react, Bei Yunj picked up the wine glass on the table. Before anyone could react, the wine was poured over his head. The man was so drenched that he shivered and did not come back to his senses for a moment. The next moment he heard her chuckle. "How is it? Are you sober now? How dare you treat me like this?" The man was furious. He wiped his face and looked at Bei Yunj in disbelief. She wished she could skin Bei Yunj alive. This scene stunned Song Yao completely. She stood rooted to the ground in a daze and forgot to pull Bei Yunj. "The first cup is to give you face. The second cup is to remind you to save your face and get lost. Do you understand, everyone?" Bei Yunj looked at him with a faint smile. He slowly put down the wine glass, but the coldness in his eyes was terrifying. It made everyone present feel inexplicably shocked. It seems like Miss Pei's temper has always been bad. Suddenly, Fu Yanbai, who had been silent all this while, spoke. "You're really courting death. You even dare to interfere in young Master Fu's matters." The man wiped his face with a tissue and said fiercely to Bei Yunj. He hoped that Fu Yanbai would quickly teach this reckless little bee teach a lesson. "So it's young Master Fu. I'm sorry. My desk mate has a bad temper." Lu Yuanxi walked over from the side and stood beside Bei Yunj. He had a hand in his pocket and smiled casually. Chapter 586. He's the young master of the Lu family? The people around Fu Yanbai immediately recognized Lu Yuanxi. Chu Zhixing also came over and spoke elegantly. "President Fu, I'm sorry to have disturbed your mood." With that said, the people behind Fu Yanbai widened their eyes. This is the second young master of the Chu family? Why were all the people around this girl so important? Why, are you her desk mate too? Fu Yanbai stared at Chu Zhixing for a while and asked. The Chu family and the Fu family had a relationship. "No, but that's our Master Pei." Chu Zhixing chuckled. It was obvious. Both of them were protecting Bei Yunj. After a long time, Fu Yanbai's gaze shifted to Bei Yunj. He smiled as well, his eyes burning. "You're very capable. Can anyone become your helper if you want?" But the way he looked at her seemed to be looking at another person through her. He wanted this girl. However, the troublesome thing was that he could not offend that person from the Hua family. Gah! Song Yao grabbed Bei Yunj's hand and looked at Fu Yanbai warily. How could she not tell that Fu Yanbai's attitude towards Bei Yunj was very different? "Young Master Fu, the Fu family can't withstand the torment. Do you need help?" Bei Yunj chuckled, her beautiful eyes filled with arrogance and hostility. With that said, the people around Fu Yanbai could not help but look at Bei Yunj. They felt that Bei Yunj was bold and curious about her. Did this woman know what status the Fu family had? She was so happy. She dared to say such words. The Qin family is at its peak now, but it doesn't mean that they can touch the Fu family. As for that person from the Hua family, do you think he will deal with the Fu family for you? Fu Yanbai smiled. Young Master Fu, you're so confident. Why don't you think about why you can't get the 11 project? Bei Yunj asked with a smile. When Fu Yanbai heard this, the calmness on his face disappeared and his eyes darkened. How did she know about the 11 project? Did Huashidu tell her? The Qin family was not involved in any technology projects, so it was almost impossible for them to know that the Fu family was talking about the 11 project. This was the right to use a regional project that the Fu Corporation had bought from the Delaney Group. It was the first project of the researchers who had obtained Busaka and Farisk some time ago. Apart from the Fu's enterprise, there were also other companies in a land vying for this piece of juicy meat. However, Delaney was the first to reject the Fu Corporation. Even the reason was very perfunctory and puzzling. How do you know about the 11 project? I thought you would ask me why I couldn't get the 11 project. Bei Yunj's bright eyes curved into crescents, looking lazy and arrogant. After saying this, she pulled Song Yao and left the hall on the first floor. Everyone else was silent. For a moment, the atmosphere was a little cold. Originally, he had come to take care of Song Yao today as a routine, but he did not expect an accident. Young Master Fu about Song Yao. At this moment, the boss of the bar ran over, his back covered in sweat. He couldn't afford to offend Fu Yanbai, but he couldn't afford to offend the Chu and Lu families either. They were really making things difficult for him, a businessman. I won't let her off. Fu Yanbai's voice was cold. If it wasn't for Song Yao, Yu Ling wouldn't have jumped into the sea to commit suicide. Master Pei, why are you smashing someone's place just because of a disagreement? Chapter 587. It was Chu Zhixing's first time seeing someone scold Fu Yanbai like that. He did not know how Fu Yanbai had offended Master Pei. I gave him face, but he didn't want it. After Bei Yunj finished speaking slowly, he turned to glance at Song Yao. What's wrong with you? The adventures of a silly work girl? Song Yao said. No, it's just that my family isn't very well off. Bei Yunj did not notice at first. After all, Song Yao's aura did not seem like a girl from an ordinary family. Did something happen at home? After Bei Yunj brought her into the private room, he let go of her and pulled off the work pass on her chest. He took off his coat and put it on her. I'm bankrupt. Song Yao nodded. She looked gentle and calm. Lu Yuanxi could not help laughing. Master Pei, can you not be so fierce to girls? Pei Yunj glanced at him. I'll go get the wine. Lu Yuanxi immediately turned and left. Don't drink. I'll get Lu Yuanxi to send you back later. Bei Yunj glanced at Song Yao and smiled lazily. After all, I'm a girl. It's not safe for me. Lu Yuanxi was speechless. Your King afraid of being unsafe? Was he the one who poured wine on someone's head at the table just now? Song Yao could not help but laugh. I can go back myself. Nothing happened. I'll send you back. My desk mate is my friend. With that said, Lu Yuanxi opened the door and went out. Meanwhile, Chu Zhixing and the other students were playing in the private room. At this moment, Song Yao roughly told Bei Yunj about what had happened at home. Because Song Yao had offended Fu Yanbai had used the Fu Corporation to make the Song Corporation bankrupt. Song Yao's father could not bear the burden and committed suicide, leaving her and her mother to live together. However, perhaps because Fu Yanbai felt that this was not enough, he forced her to work in a bar. He would come and find trouble with her a few times a month. Actually, the reason why I'm restudying is not because of anything else. At that time, I had already received the acceptance letter from Jin University, but because of Fu Yanbai, I was disqualified. Song Yao said calmly without any resentment. Jin University's admission scores for the past 2 years were not much different from Yun University's. Because of Yu Ling, a woman he likes, Song Yao said. Bei Yunj frowned and looked at her. Yu Ling. Previously, she had heard Hua Shidu talk about this person. Yes, we're classmates. When she was in her second year of high school, she started chasing Fu Yanbai. The two of them often quarreled because of the difference in status. Song Yao said with a smile, Yu Ling always felt that Fu Yanbai didn't respect her, and she knew that I used to like Fu Yanbai too, so she often came over to ask me to be with Fu Yanbai after quarreling. Almost every time they quarreled, she would hear Fu Yanbai say in front of Yu Ling and everyone else that he didn't like her and coax Yu Ling. She was a socialite who had been pampered since she was young, but she couldn't compare to Yu Ling. Song Yao took a deep breath. However, there's indeed something wrong with Fu Yanbai. After finding out about Yu Ling's existence from the Fu family, Old Master Fu didn't agree to let Yu Ling in. On the other hand, Yu Ling was proud and wanted to leave when she threw a tantrum, but Fu Yanbai imprisoned her in his house. In order to coax Yu Ling, Fu Yanbai asked me to talk to her. Chapter 588. Did she fall in accidentally? Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow. The rumors outside were that she had committed suicide. A person like her won't commit suicide. She knows very well that Fu Yanbai dotes on her. As long as she makes a fuss, Fu Yanbai will give her everything. Song Yao smiled. No matter how sick Fu Yanbai's feelings for Yu Ling were, Yu Ling was still able to handle him. She knew that only Fu Yanbai could give her what she wanted. You're not friends with her, right? Bei Yunj glanced at her. Song Yao nodded hesitantly, but she pinched the corner of her skirt unconsciously. This was the first time someone had said this. As for the others, they always thought that she had a good relationship with Yu Ling. But no, it was never like that. Silly girl. Bei Yunj smirked unconsciously and poked Song Yao's head with her index finger. But no one will find trouble with their friends time and time again. I've never liked her. Song Yao did not hide her feelings for Yu Ling at all. Do I look like her? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. If they were really that alike, why did Song Yao treat her so well the moment they met? As a result, Bei Yunj had always wondered if this girl was stupid. Do we look alike? Song Yao looked at Bei Yunj and shook her head. I don't think so. She liked Bei Yunj because Bei Yunj was good-looking. She looked like the ragdoll cat she had raised before when she was half asleep on the table. Hearing this, Bei Yunj lost interest in Fu Yanbai and his wife. How much money does your family owe? Bei Yunj asked. I know you're very good, but I shouldn't trouble you. Song Yao had a bottom line in her heart. There were some things that she shouldn't trouble her friends with. Bei Yunj took out a card and stuffed it into Song Yao's pocket. She said slowly, then you can sell yourself to me. You can work and go to school at the same time. Do you want to participate in the competition? But I owe a lot. Song Yao couldn't even look up and didn't dare to look at Bei Yunj. There's 100 million in this card. If you think it's not enough, I'll bring another card tomorrow. Song Yao was speechless. Had she been away from the rich for too long? The pocket money of the rich and powerful nowadays was measured in hundreds of millions. In the past, she only had a few 100,000 yuan in pocket money a month. I can't take this money. Song Yao returned the card to Bei Yunj. I didn't say that you can't pay me back. The winner of the world championship gets 300,000 yuan, Bei Yunj said. Song Yao asked, You're not participating? Bei Yunj had no intention of going abroad for the Youth World Championship. But first place is too difficult. Before Song Yao could finish speaking, she felt Bei Yunj's gaze and fell silent. When Lu Yuanxi returned, he saw the crime scene. Cough cough. Let's drink. Lu Yuanxi immediately eased the atmosphere and made up for the birthday party that he did not follow the procedures properly last time. The next day, Fu Yanbai received a call. What is it? Fu Yanbai's voice was hoarse. There was a female companion on the bed. Young Master Fu, Song Yao, returned the money. Hearing this, Fu Yanbai's eyes turned cold. More than 70 million yuan. How could Song Yao have the money to return it? Soon, Fu Yanbai thought of that person from yesterday. Bei Yunj, after a while, he said coldly, I'll deal with it. Was Song Yao trying to escape? Did she think that she could live a stable life just because someone had returned the money for her? She should live a lowly life for the rest of her life to atone for her sins. Chapter 589. Yumanran was jealous and felt that his status was not as good as before. Who is this girl? Is she your friend? Bei Yunj looked at Song Yao, who was still doing questions not far away. She was leaning against the corridor and drinking water. Why are you so good to her? Yumanran was jealous. This little kid has always wanted to return my money. I'm afraid that something will happen to her, so I think it's safe with you. Bei Yunj thought for a moment. If this doesn't work, I can only attack the Fu Corporation first. Wait, Song Yao's name. After regaining his senses, Yumanran was shocked. The eldest young lady of the Song family? You know her? I know her. She used to be very famous and was good friends with Fu Yanbai's dead ex-girlfriend. Yumanran said. They're not, Bei Yunj said calmly. I see. Yumanran seemed to understand. Then I understand. I'll arrange for someone to audition for her as a model. She seems to have been forced to repeat her second year of high school, right? Then I'll arrange for less work. Okay, thank you, Mimin. In our nation, Huashidu received a call. It was from Fu Yanbai. After Huashidu answered the call, he heard him suppressing his anger, but there was still a hint of anger in his voice. Master Du is so generous to the young lady? You can take out 70 to 80 million yuan so easily? What's the matter? Huashidu's deep and indifferent voice was cold. Bei Yunj casually gave Song Yao 70 to 80 million yuan to pay off her debt. Doesn't Master Du think anything of it? Fu Yanbai could not help but come to look for Huashidu. Huashidu's eyebrows moved. He did not have any impression of the name Song Yao. He said slowly, Is that so? Beautiful book bar. Before Fu Yanbai could speak, he heard Huashidu's conversation. Tseng Su, pay this debt for Miss so that there won't be enough next month. The man's low and magnetic voice said lazily. Tseng Su suppressed the surging emotions in his heart. Wasn't Bei Yunj too much? Pay a debt of 7 to 8,000 yuan? Master Du, aren't you afraid of spoiling her? Fu Yanbai's face was ashen. He had never thought that a man could spoil a woman to this extent. I'll deal with what she's done. As for young Master Fu, take care of yourself. After that, Huashidu hung up. It also caused Fu Yanbai's face to turn pale and green. Master Du, that money is really... Tseng Su hesitated. The man's thin eyelids didn't even lift as he said lightly, Yes, I did. Huashidu did not show it either. Bei Yunj did not know where the money came from. He just asked Tseng Su to transfer more money into Bei Yunj's bank account. He knew this little girl's temperament very well. She wouldn't do anything out of line. Also, get someone to keep a close eye on the Fu family. The little girl has a bad temper. When necessary, just take care of her. There's no need to save face for others. Huashidu's meaning was very obvious. If the Fu family provoked Bei Yunj, in order to make Bei Yunj happy, they could deal with the Fu family in any way. Yes, Tseng Yu happened to come back from her patrol. I'll get Tseng Yu to follow Mississippi, Tseng Su nodded. At Yun University. Bei Yunj had just entered the multimedia hall when she heard an unfamiliar female voice. Song Yao, do you really think that you can participate in the world competition? Chapter 590. Bei Yunj stopped at the door and raised her pretty eyes slowly. She saw a girl in a blue short dress standing in front of Song Yao arrogantly with everyone. Yes, if you have the chance, why don't you? Song Yao's tone was gentle and she had a smile on her face. However, her words made the expressions of the girls present stiffen. They felt like they wanted to flare up, but they didn't know where to vent their anger. This Song Yao used to be a noble person, but she had become like this. Song Yao, I think you're too depraved. Su Xianing narrowed her eyes and laughed coldly. Student Su, if you're done, can you leave now? Song Yao did not plan to fight with Su Xianing. But at this moment, Su Xianing laughed coldly and saw the 2 exercise books in Song Yao's hands. Then, before Song Yao could react, Su Xianing quickly took the exercise books. Su Xianing. Song Yao's eyes immediately turned cold and she stood up. You're finally willing to flare up? Instead, Su Xianing smirked and flipped through the 2 exercise books. So you're doing homework for others, Miss Song. This has nothing to do with you. Song Yao clenched her fists, a cold glint in her eyes. She did not care about being pointed at, but Su Xianing obviously would not miss this opportunity to target Bei Yunj. Apologize to me and admit that it was because of you that Yu Ling got into trouble. Su Xianing looked down at her. Hearing this, even Song Yao's eyes were filled with coldness. However, after hesitating for a moment, her clenched fists slowly relaxed. You know that this class doesn't allow such behavior, right? I heard that the teachers of the ordinary class like you, so nothing might happen to you. What about Bei Yunj? Hearing this, Song Yao's hand loosened completely. She pursed her lips. Su Xianing, suddenly. What do you think will happen to me? A clear and melodious voice rang out. Then, before Su Xianing could turn back to look at her, a slender and fair hand pulled the 2 exercise books away. You! Su Xianing's face twisted. Bei Yunj did not even look at Su Xianing from the corner of her eye. She walked in front of Song Yao and patted her head with the exercise book. She said lazily, What are you thinking about, Tanan? You're admitting that you didn't do it? Song Yao was speechless. She was certain that this Tian Tian was definitely the Tian Tian in the idiotic sense. Bei Yunj, I've already caught evidence of Song Yao copying homework for you. Go ahead, snitch. Bei Yunj sat beside Song Yao and slowly flipped through the exercise book. She had just picked up the pen when she thought for a while and pushed the exercise book to Song Yao. Continue writing. The bullying at the scene was very arrogant. Song Yao looked at Bei Yunj and was silent for a while before she picked up the pen and wrote slowly. During this period of time, Bei Yunj would call her to correct the wrong questions even if she didn't come. Bei Yunj's book was also used by her to review her mistakes. When Su Xianing saw this, her expression changed. You! Oh, why is this student from the advanced class in our class? The lecturer walked in slowly with a teacup. Hearing this, Su Xianing immediately said, Teacher, I'm reporting Bei Yunj and Song Yao. The students in the special class record their usual results. Song Yao and Bei Yunj copied each other's homework and used unfair competition methods. Chapter 591. Hearing this, the lecturer paused in his action of putting down the thermos flask and could not help but look at her. Song Yao and Bei Yunj? A few seconds later, the lecturer glanced at Song Yao before his eyes landed on Bei Yunj. Is what Su Xianing said true? Teacher, actually, before Song Yao could explain, she heard the lecturer say, I didn't ask you to speak, Song Yao. But Song Yao was about to insist when she was interrupted by Bei Yunj. Teacher, I won't admit to this. Hearing Bei Yunj being so calm, Su Xianing laughed coldly. Everyone saw with their own eyes that Song Yao used your exercise book to do it. Are you still not admitting it? What do you say? The lecturer looked at Bei Yunj and asked. In this situation, Song Yao was so nervous that her palms were sweating. She was afraid that the teacher would really ask Bei Yunj to leave because he didn't like Bei Yunj. How did you know that exercise book was mine? Before Su Xianing could refute, she heard Bei Yunj say with a casual smile, Did you write my name? Dang! Su Xianing was about to respond when her body suddenly froze. She didn't seem to have seen the name on the exercise book just now. Bei Yunj had been in class for a month and she hadn't even written her name on the exercise book? Not only Su Xianing, even the lecturer froze, his expression not too good. Bei Yunj, you've been in class for so long and you didn't even write your name on the exercise book? Teacher, she forgot, Song Yao immediately explained. The people around her were even more anxious than the original owner. Seeing this, Su Xianing and the people around her started to gloat. But in the next moment, the lecturer's expression was dark. Bei Yunj, Professor Do told me that you're very talented, but do you know how talent is erased? Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved. Lingjio Literature Network. No wonder her results in every assessment period were not ideal, but she would always have one more place in the ranking. If you can't pass this paper in an hour, I don't want to see you in this classroom again. As soon as he finished speaking, when Su Xianing saw the question on the paper, her lips curled into a mocking smile. Hearing this, Song Yao looked at Bai Yunj pitifully, indicating for her to do it well this time. Bai Yunj could not withdraw from the competition in such a dejected manner. Bai Yunj glanced at Song Yao and then at the paper. She was silent for a while. "Teacher, this paper is not good." When Su Xianing heard this, the corners of her mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Professor Dou's handpicked student was only SOSO. What kind of extraordinary talent was this? Why? The lecturer looked at her and asked. Song Yao tugged at Bai Yunj's sleeve nervously. "More than half of that paper was set by me." Bai Yunj looked up at the lecturer. "Lecturer?" Song Yao was speechless. After coming back to his senses, the lecturer was a little incoherent. What did you say?" Bai Yunj thought for a while and said, "It's not very fair to do this test paper." Everyone, damn. This damned person was actually Bai Yunj. The teachers who had come to substitute for the past few days had all said that this paper was very good. But in everyone's eyes, it was too tricky. It was even more suffocating than Huang Qishan's physics paper. In the end, this was set by Bai Yunj. Su Xianing and the rest did not look too good either. In the advanced class, only she and Qing Zihuai had scored 70 to 80 points for this paper. Chapter 592. Actually, before Song Yao took a photo of this paper for Bai Yunj had always thought that Professor Dou was testing her. But later, she found out that during the professor's gathering, Professor Dou had been made drunk by Si Qingyan. When Si Qingyan saw that someone was rushing for the papers of the special class, he felt guilty and used Professor Dou's account to send a test mission to Bai Yunj. Then, half an hour later, Si Qingyan received something from Bai Yunj and silently transferred a copy to the dean. Song Yao suddenly remembered that when she sent this paper to Bai Yunj seemed to have been silent for a long time. So this was her paper. At this moment, the lecturer's lips twitched. He did not know what to do with Bai Yunj. He took a deep breath. "We'll talk about this in the future. First, teacher, as the top university in the country, are you going to choose to protect a student?" Su Xianing's cold voice sounded. The people around could not help but look at this arrogant girl in front of them. It had to be said. Other than Su Xianing, no one had the guts to speak to the lecturer of Yun University like this. "This isn't protecting a student." The lecturer frowned unconsciously, but before he could speak, he heard the voice of the person behind him. "Xianing, why are you here? Why are you talking to Teacher Gao?" Everyone turned around and saw Professor Wei from the mathematics department. In the past 2 years, Professor Wei's reputation had been even greater than Professor Dou's. Su Xianing also called Professor Wei, but most people knew that Professor Wei was Su Xianing's uncle. It's like this. When I came to the ordinary class to visit a friend, I accidentally found someone doing homework for someone else. But I remember that our final assessment usually takes up a part of the results. Isn't that cheating? Number 1 asked. Hearing this, Professor Wei frowned and glanced at Teacher Gao. Is that so? What Su Xianing said isn't that true, Teacher Gao said. It's just that a student rarely comes, so, if it's not that true, then it should be mostly true. Professor Wei said coldly. In that case, the two of them can leave the special class together. Their existence is indeed unfair to others. Professor Wei, but Song Yao is currently the top student in the ordinary class. Teacher Gao said instinctively. Like you said, it's an ordinary class. Professor Wei sneered and looked at his watch. All right, stop talking nonsense with me. Today, Yun University will have some important guests. I don't want them to know about the existence of these two people when they visit. After that, Professor Wei glanced at Bai Yunj coldly and was about to leave. Seeing this, Su Xianing also laughed. After Professor Wei left, she looked at Bai Yunj and Song Yao. Her gaze was filled with sarcasm and contempt. Song Yao, a person like you will be pulled down no matter who you cling to. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't be like you and still have the face to speak so confidently after killing someone. Song Yao's eyes moved, her eyes filled with forbearance. In the past 2 to 3 years, everyone thought that she was punished because she had harmed Yuling. Everyone tacitly agreed that she had been treated unfairly. Yao Yao, what do you want to eat? Bei Yunj suddenly asked and interrupted Song Yao's attention. I'm fine with anything, Song Yao said. Then let's have a meal first. Chapter 593. Teacher Gao's expression did not look too good either. Bei Yunj, don't go yet. Professor Do might. Teacher Gao, I'm sorry for troubling you during this period of time. Bei Yunj's eyes curved as she pulled Song Yao out of the classroom. Looking at Bei Yunj's figure, Teacher Gao felt an inexplicable strange emotion. To be honest, although he had little contact with Bei Yunj during this period of time and even felt that this student was unruly and did not do her job properly. However, in terms of details, this student was unruly but well-mannered. Do you really not want to participate at all? If you can get first place in this competition, it will be a valuable stepping stone for you to enter various research institutes in the future. I don't want to, Bei Yunj said slowly. Song Yao was speechless. What was this person thinking all day long? Stay here first. I have a call. Bei Yunj brought Song Yao to the private room and walked out. In the long corridor, the person on the other end of the call said in surprise, Miss, you're finally willing to contact me. I heard that you're the one who's preparing for the Mitchell Mathematics International Competition? Bei Yunj asked directly. Hearing this, the head of Lee University was stunned. He did not understand why he was asking about such a competition. The head of Lee University probed. Yes, do you have any juniors who want to participate? Bei Yunj continued, Yes, can you leave a spot? Of course you can. The head of Lee University agreed readily. Although this competition required professional qualities of the contestants, how could the juniors of the family be bad? One shoe building, okay, thank you, director. Bei Yunj hummed in response. Before she could hang up, the director of the hospital hurriedly said, Wait, can you reconsider the matter of our celebrity wall? Director, I'm sorry. I don't want my private life to be affected yet. Hearing this, the director's tone was regretful. Is that so? But you're really outstanding. Actually, our Neely University has always had the intention of recruiting you. Neely University is a top school and has never lacked talents. Bei Yunj smirked lazily and easily gave Director Lee a way out. A talented person like you would be fought over in any country. Speaking of which, if it weren't for Jones, would you have developed in country R? Head Elder Lee said with a regretful tone. After all, the treatment they received in our country's Confucian arts circle had always been top-notch. There were also many scholars who had immigrated from country I won't. Bei Yunj answered without any hesitation, which stunned Dean Lee. Why? Obviously, country R could provide more resources. Bei Yunj didn't even lift her eyelids. She had been asked the same question since her last life. That's my family's teachings. These words made Dean Lee suddenly curious about country A. After all, their country's ancestors had never received such education. Meanwhile, Professor Wei was showing 2 people around the campus. Along the way, he attracted the attention of many people. This was Jasmine and Titch, the students of Country R's top rich second-generation heir. Thank you for your hospitality, Professor Wei. Thank you very much for today. Jasmine smiled at Professor Wei. You're welcome. I've heard that you're also in Yunqing? Professor Wei said with a smile, but he was asking for information. Chapter 594. That's indeed the case. Our teacher has always been in Yunqing and has never left. Jasmine smiled. Then I wonder, will I have the chance to meet him? Professor Wei's mind was on the 8,000 questions. But who would have thought that a new scientific researcher in the computing field would actually solve the 8,000 questions in the mathematics world? If possible, he hoped to have a chance to interact with him and become the 3rd person to solve the 8,000 questions. I'm really sorry. Our teacher doesn't like to meet strangers. Jasmine smiled helplessly. Neely University has always wanted to organize a wall of fame for our teacher, but they haven't been able to contact our teacher. At this point, Jasmine and Titch also felt a sense of pride. Back then, when Marcus asked them to follow the new members of the Our Nation's Computing Institute, they were still a little unconvinced. After all, they had always been the young elites in the industry. But later on, it was their teacher's professionalism that taught them how to behave. But our teacher is in the Computing Institute. If you really want to meet him, you can visit Mr. Zhong Lin. Titch said. Really? Thank you. A smile immediately appeared on Professor Wei's face and he continued chatting with Jasmine and Titch. However, I didn't expect the two of you to come to Yuncheng personally. Jasmine's eyes were filled with envy. This is our teacher's hometown. We really want to see the place where our teacher grew up. Yes, I also heard that the teacher-student relationship in Country A is very good. Country A is very particular about respecting teachers. We have always wanted to get closer to our teacher. Titch nodded. Hearing this, Professor Wei also began to realize that these two top rich second-generation heirs did not put on any airs in front of him. It was a sincere respect for him. One had to know that the rich circle of our nation still had some residual feudal thoughts. But in order to get closer to him, these two had personally come to Yuncheng to meet him. Thinking of this, Professor Wei could not help but feel envious. Suddenly, Titch received a call. Seeing the caller ID, Titch's tone immediately weakened. Teacher? Yes, have you eaten? The voice on the other end was slow. Yes, I've eaten. That thesis today. Before Titch could finish, he was interrupted. Just give me the thesis this week. How long will you be staying in Yuncheng recently? More than half a month. Titch was a little stunned. He did not quite understand why Bei Yunj asked this question. Then are you free? Tiki answered without hesitation, yes, I do. Between you and Jasmine, who is better at mathematics? Bei Yunj asked. That's about the same. Titch didn't dare to say anything about anyone, especially after Bei Yunj taught him mathematics the last time. I have a friend is participating in the Mitchell Mathematics International Mathematical Olympiad. Hearing Bei Yunj asked, he nodded repeatedly. At the same time, there were people around their teacher who were participating in the Mitchell International Mathematics competition. Wasn't he too down to earth? Okay. I'll send someone to look for you later. No, teacher, please take care of yourself. To be. Professor Wei could not help but look at Titch. Is Titch on the phone with someone? After Bei Yunj finished explaining, the two of them hung up the phone. Titch looked at Jasmine again. Chapter 595. Teacher asked us to fetch someone. Hearing this, Jasmine raised an eyebrow. What happened? You'll know later. With that said, Titch turned to look at Professor Wei. Professor Wei, we still have to fetch someone. Why don't you leave first? However, a dark glint flashed in Professor Wei's eyes as he smiled. It's all right. I'm familiar with Yuncheng. If that person can't find you, I can bring you there. If this person was a friend of, then he would have a better chance of coming into contact with her. At this moment, Titch and Jasmine looked at each other and did not say anything. 10 minutes later, they suddenly saw a girl about the same age as their teacher. She seemed to be looking for someone. Jasmine's eyebrows moved. He was about to go forward when Professor Wei saw Song Yao, who was wandering around Yun University. Didn't I ask you to go out? Why are you still here? Professor Wei's tone was cold and impatient. Even his anger was rising. These students nowadays, did they all think that they were so capable? Who dared to accept the students he chased away? Professor Wei, I'm here to look for someone. Song Yao glanced at Professor Wei, but her eyes were fixed on the brown-haired Titch and the blonde-haired and blue-eyed Jasmine. Looking for someone at Yun University? Do you think that after attending classes at Yun University, you can... Do you know Yunj? Song Yao asked tentatively. These two people's appearances matched Yunj's description very well. Titch immediately nodded, his eyes shining. Bei Yunji's friend? Beside him, Jasmine could not help but look at Tich in shock. This brother was getting bolder. He even dared to call his teacher's name so directly. Yes, are you one too? Song Yao nodded. Her gentle aura was likable. Tich remembered what Bei Yunj had told him and could only nod. Hearing this, Jasmine almost thought that Tich was crazy. He even dared to call himself teacher's friend. However, in the next second, Jasmine suddenly regained his senses. Tich might have said this because of his teacher's instructions over the phone just now. Nice to meet you. I'm Song Yao, Yunji's friend. Song Yao smiled. Professor Wei, who was watching this scene, froze. Why was the person Tich and the rest were waiting for Song Yao? Didn't that call just now come from her? However, both of them had brought up Bei Yunji's name. Professor Wei remembered Bei Yunj. She was a student that Professor Do had his eyes on, but compared to talented players like Tich and Jasmine, her talent and ability were not worth mentioning. How could he be Tich's friend? Just as Professor Wei was denying it, Tich hurriedly took the exercise book for Song Yao and said with a smile, Yunj said that she wanted me to teach you mathematics. You are going to participate in the Mitchell math competition, right? Although my mathematics isn't as good as Yunj's, I've won first place in the Mitchell competition in the past. I hope you won't despise us. Song Yao was speechless. What was this person talking about? She wasn't as good as Yunj in mathematics, but she had won first place in the Mitchell competition? Ah, the Mitchell competition. It's not difficult. I've won first place before. Jasmine, who was beside her, interrupted and comforted her. Don't be nervous. It's just a small competition. Chapter 596. Song Yao could not help asking, What school are you from? I'm a postgraduate student from the computing department of Neely University, Tich said. Me too. I'm in the same department as him. We're both interns at the Institute of Computing Technology in our nation. Jasmine added, I'm an intern. Is it the one who solved the 8 questions? Song Yao felt her legs go weak and she suspected that she was dreaming. Was the big boss's student taking her under his wing? Hearing their identities, Song Yao felt that it was a waste of their talent to take her under their wing. Seeing this, Jasmine understood. Indeed, the teacher's friend did not know the teacher's identity. Jasmine said with a gentle smile, So you don't have to worry. We'll teach you diligently during this period. Song Yao was speechless. Isn't this too troublesome? She really did not know what Master Pei was doing. At first, she thought that Bei Yunj had found a student from Yun University to teach her. Who would have thought that it would be a postgraduate student from Neely University? Furthermore, this was his personal student? No trouble, no trouble. We're very happy to do it, Tich said hurriedly. What a joke. It was the first time their teacher had instructed them to do something. If they couldn't do it well, wouldn't they seem too useless? Finally, Professor Wei could not help but speak, his expression still not too good. Isn't the person you want to take over someone you know? Hearing this, Song Yao looked at Professor Wei in confusion. How could she know a god of this level? Yes, it's someone I know. I'm not too sure either. Tich said vaguely, maybe someone asked our teacher for help. When Professor Wei heard this, his expression turned even uglier. He was looking for an opportunity to contact her through his student. That Bei Yunj actually had the ability to get in touch with this person and get his student to teach Song Yao. But does this student have a spot to participate in the Mitchell competition? Professor Wei said with a fake smile. He knew very well that if Jasmine and Tich took Song Yao, Su Xianing's chances of getting first place would be even lower. Hearing this, Tich turned around in confusion. Isn't Song Yao an individual international contestant? What? Professor Wei's expression changed completely. For a long time, the requirements for individual international contestants were very high. They needed qualified scientific researchers to recommend them. Even he didn't have the qualifications to be a recommender. He had just dismissed Song Yao not long ago. How did she become an individual international player? Miss Song, do you want to check it out? At this time, They should have already registered, Tich said. Hearing this, Song Yao was also inexplicably nervous and took out her phone to check. Not long after entering the website address, then her personal information appeared. Name, Song Yao. Sex, female. Player type, individual. International player. Recommended by. Seeing the last line, Tich and Jasmine's eyes were filled with envy. Even their teacher hadn't let them walk through such a special passage. An individual international player. One could directly advance to the next round of the preliminaries. This meant that as long as Song Yao passed the 4th round, she would at least be in the top 10. One had to know that in the past few years, almost no one had been able to pass the requirements of an individual international player. In this year, Song Yao was probably the only international player. All of a sudden, Professor Wei's expression was ugly and he regretted it even more. He had actually chased Song Yao and Bei Yunj away. Chapter 597. If he hadn't chased them away, would he have been able to get to know them through Bei Yunj? At this thought, Professor Wei's heart turned cold. He could not help turning to look at Song Yao, his voice stiff and slow. Student Song, is Bei Yunj also an individual international contestant? She's not participating. At first, Song Yao did not understand why Bei Yunj was not interested in this competition. However, at this moment, when Song Yao heard what Tich had said and the recommender displayed on her phone screen, she seemed to understand why Bei Yunj was not interested in the competition. Song Yao took a deep breath and stared at the recommender displayed on the screen. Was really, her recommender was actually? Suddenly, Song Yao really wanted to send a message to Bei Yunj to ask if she could get her an autograph. This was a new scientific research big boss. At this moment, Professor Wei's expression darkened even more. It was over. He had really offended Bei Yunj. At the Computing Institute, Bei Yunj glanced at the phone beside her that was flashing with notifications. She did not plan to look at the message. She didn't need to guess to know that this was from Song Yao. Until 6 in the afternoon. When Bei Yunj was about to go back, she called Song Yao and walked out. However, she did not expect to see Fu Yanbai standing at the door of the car the moment she went out. It was obvious that he was waiting for someone. Looking at Fu Yanbai's gaze, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows quietly. She vaguely felt that this person might be her. Yao Yao, I'll hang up first. With that said, Bei Yunj hung up. New World. When Fu Yanbai heard this name, he frowned unconsciously and a trace of coldness flashed past his eyes. Miss Pei, I have to remind you that that woman is not a good person. She looks gentle, but she has a vicious heart. Bei Yunj did not even look at him and planned to leave. Seeing this, Fu Yanbai immediately chased after her and handed the bouquet to Bei Yunj. He smirked. Don't you like these flowers? I've heard that no woman doesn't like flowers. The woman you like is called Yu Ling, right? Bei Yunj's words made Fu Yanbai pause. Then he calmly admitted, yes. She's a very bright and kind person. Although she's not as good-looking as you and doesn't have your family background, her personality and yours. Young Master Fu, if it were me, the one who fell into the sea back then wouldn't have been me. It would have been you. Bei Yunj's slow words interrupted Fu Yanbai. He laughed. Yes, you're even more daring than Ling. Was it because of Hua Shidu? He does care a lot about you. But Miss Pei, it's not easy to enter the Hua family. As soon as he finished speaking, before Bei Yunj could say anything, a woman's voice suddenly rang out. Young Master Fu, are you trying to take advantage of Master Du? Hearing this, Bei Yunj turned to look at the woman who was walking over. He was dressed in professional attire and looked very capable. His eyebrows seemed to resemble Tseng Su's. Miss Pei, my name is Tseng Yu. I just came back from K country 2 days ago. I'll be in charge of your daily life in the future. When Tseng Yu smiled, there were 2 little dimples on her face, which made her look more childish. Master Du is even willing to let Miss Pei use you? Fu Yanbai's words were vague. He was deliberately making Bei Yunj think that there might be something between Tseng Yu and Hua Shidu. It's my honor to be able to stay by Miss Pei's side. Master Du thinks highly of me. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.